The Detroit Lions just wrapped up their fourth draft underneath GM Brad Holmes, and now they're getting set to move on to the next phase of their offseason schedule. But there is one person inside of the Lions organization that now faces a massive amount of pressure. And we're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, all Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, here's the thing, folks. We obviously know the draft just wrapped up. Awesome draft. Broke a lot of records as far as what happened during the draft. We broke the fan attendance record. Awesome draft. But when we're talking about the draft in terms of the Lions, in my opinion, did some things that were to script and some things that were not to script in terms of what fans were expecting them to do when it came to the draft. Now let's talk about what they didn't do that a lot of fans were expecting them to do. A lot of things that a lot of Lions fans were expecting them to do was to primarily add a pass rusher. They were expecting that an edge rusher was going to be something that the Lions were going to add during the draft because, well, to be fair and honest, there was not a whole lot of stuff that was added in terms of free agency, in terms of edge rushers, as far as an established, as far as a steadfast commodity. Obviously, yes, we went out, we got Matthew Betts from the CFL, who was considered the best defensive player in the Canadian Football League. Yes, we went out and we signed Marcus Davenport. But the problem is, for both of those guys, when Betts was in the NFL with the Bears last time, he didn't do particularly well. Davenport has had an injury history that is literally a mile long and a mile wide. The guy has got a long history when it comes to injuries. So for a lot of Lions fans, they were expecting that Brad Holmes was going to bring in a talented young guy to pair opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. That obviously did not happen. So that was one thing that was unconventional. That was one thing that was not taken care of as far as what people were expecting the script was going to be for the Lions draft process. Now, that does not necessarily mean Brad Holmes and the Lions didn't do things that were expected, because they did address the defense in one primary way that a lot of people were wanting them to address. Fixing the defensive backroom, primarily the cornerback situation. Going into the draft, the Lions only had one proven commodity at cornerback. That was Carlton Davis. Brad Holmes went into the draft and with his top two draft picks got two cornerbacks in Terrion Arnold and an Enos Rakestraw. Terrion Arnold I consider probably the steal of the draft for the Lions, because that dude, to get him at pick number 24 when he was arguably considered the best cornerback prospect in the draft, I consider that just absolutely wonderful. I think that was probably Brad Holmes' best move of the entire draft, especially considering how little he had to give up in comparison to get him. Going out and getting Enos Rakestraw, a guy that is very, very intelligent, a guy that's very physical. He fits the mindset. He fits the dynamic of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell's identity for the team. Also, I thought was a pretty good move, even though for some people, they definitely were trying to figure out why that was the case, because again, like I said, the edge rusher was an area that they felt needed to be addressed. The whole point of the matter is that for the draft, the Lions, once again, reinvested more talent, more resources into the defense. Now, why am I talking about this? The reason why I'm talking about this is because, unfortunately, I have to bring this up once again. I have to talk about this yet again. Everybody knows that when it comes to me on my channel, I give out criticism as much as I give out praise for people. Sometimes some people might consider unfair, sometimes people might consider it a little over the top, but for the most part, I try my best to be even-handed when it comes to whether or not I give praise or criticism. But the one person that I would say has probably gotten more criticism out of me and probably has gotten a lot of criticism out of a lot of Lions fans and podcasters is defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. And the reason why is because Aaron Glenn has been one of those guys that has done things either in press conferences or has done things on the field as far as his game planning, as far as his schematic changes at halftime, and a whole bunch of other things that has really rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. Now, what exactly am I referring to here? Let's understand something. When it comes to the Lions, the two coaches that have been there longer than anybody else as far as the main guys is primarily, actually it's three, pardon me, but the ones that get the most recognition are Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell. Obviously, Dave Phipps has been there also since the beginning as well because he's a special teams coordinator. Most people don't remember that, but I'm just putting that out there so that way people can't say, well, David, he's been there the same amount of time too. I know that, but I'm talking about Glenn and Dan Campbell here. Obviously, we know that those two, they share a very special relationship, a very special friendship. But when it comes to that relationship, it comes to that friendship, that is where a lot of, I would call, controversy and a lot of problems for some fans has started to become an issue for them. Why is that the case? Well, when Aaron Glenn first got here, what was the thing that he told the fans? He told the media of the Lions. He said, I want to be known as the best defensive coordinator in Lions history. Okay, that's what you're gunning for. That's what you're going for. That is your goal, so to speak. Your personal goal, at least anyway, other than winning a Super Bowl. The problem is that ever since Aaron Glenn has been the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, the progression that we have seen out of his defenses has been either very, very small to almost none at all. And the reason why I'm saying small is because over time in certain areas it has gotten better. And again, I say that very specifically. In certain areas, it's gotten better. Again, I'm trying my best to be fair to both Glenn and the defense, but at the same time, sticking to the facts. The majority of Glenn's time as the defensive coordinator has been one under fire. Let's just be entirely honest here. His defenses have been downright god-awful, atrocious, pathetic, pitiful, just any negative term you'd like to use. That is usually what you can kind of connect with Aaron Glenn's defense. We have not had a good passing defense virtually at any point since he's been here. We've had a problem being a consistent pressurizing and sacking defense. The only area that has seen a massive turnaround is the rush defense. We were one of the worst rush defenses for the first 2 or 3 years, the first 2 years under Aaron Glenn, and then the third year, last year, we were one of the best rush defenses. We went from like bottom of the league to the second best rush defense in 1 year. So I'll give Aaron Glenn his kudos there. We were able to fix the rush defense, which that is impressive. But the problem with Aaron Glenn is that, okay, here, let's back up for half a second. Aaron Glenn is a former cornerback in the NFL. He had, if I recall correctly, he at least had been to the Pro Bowl at least once, probably a couple of times. He's a cornerback, right? Everybody knows this. But yet, for being a cornerback, for being a secondaries coach back with the Saints, the main area of weakness for our defense has always been the passing game coordination. It's always been trying to stop receivers and quarterbacks of opposing offenses. We just can't seem to get it figured out. And we have gone through a literal bevy of different coaches trying to figure out what he needs to get this thing to work. Again, let's go back to when we first started this whole show. We had Aubrey Pleasant, a guy that was considered a very, very smart up-and-coming coach, and then all of a sudden we find out that he gets fired because apparently he wasn't listening to what Aaron Glenn was saying. Okay, that's a fair enough reason to get fired. Then we bring in Dre Bly, another guy who is very well respected as a player, who is starting to build his coaching resume. He comes in for 1 year, and then boom, he gets fired. Now we're on to the third guy that as the cornerbacks coach is underneath Aaron Glenn. I'm just going to say this right now. My dad used to teach me this. If you keep having the same problem, but you keep doing the exact same thing, you're going to get the same result unless you change something. Well, here's the thing. There's another way to describe that. It's called insanity. You're doing the exact same thing over and over again, and then you're not doing anything to change, but yet you're expecting a different result. Aaron Glenn has brought in multiple different, cornerbacks coaches, and the result has not changed. Okay, now let's see what has changed. Hopefully, that will inspire a different result from the defensive passing game. Brad Holmes going out and actually drafting cornerbacks. Because let's understand something here. To Aaron Glenn's credit, Brad Holmes has not invested an actual top draft pick in a cornerback. Now, That's why I said that very specifically. Cornerback. He has drafted safeties before, a.k.a. Kirby Joseph, a.k.a. Brian Branch. I know people will say, well, Ife Melifonwu, when he was drafted, he was a cornerback. Yes, that's true, but now he primarily plays at safety. So again, I'm trying to be fair here. I'm trying my utmost dead level best to be fair to Aaron Glenn. So my whole point of the matter is this. When it comes to the cornerback room situation, it comes to the cornerbacks in particular, Brad Holmes has not done a whole lot up until this draft to really add more talent into that room via the draft. Oh, sure, Brad Holmes has gone out and he has signed players such as Cameron Sutton. Obviously, that one ended in disaster, not necessarily because of anything Brad Holmes couldn't foresee, but I'm just simply saying that obviously did not work, whether on the field or off the field. The whole point of the matter is that for the last couple of years, Aaron Glenn has not really had what he needed as far as a cornerback was concerned to make that pass defense better. It's been usually a lot of patchwork back there. We haven't really had a cornerback that was considered a first-round prospect, and even at the time when we had him, he was considered a bust already, was Jeff Okudah. Since then, we've been plugging in a bunch of guys as patchwork people, UDFAs, going out into free agency, things of that nature. We hadn't really invested our own draft picks, which is what Brad Holmes has used to, build up the defense over the years, as well as, the offense in general. That's what we were missing. Now Brad Holmes, this draft, goes out and he puts not one, but two cornerbacks into freaking Aaron Glenn's lap. So here's why I'm putting this out there yet again. Over the last 4 drafts now, because we just finished the 4th one, Brad Holmes has had 29 draft picks. 29. Let's think about this, folks. Brad Holmes just put yet another 3 picks into Aaron Glenn's specific pocket, into the defense. I know some people would want to say Sione Vaki is technically also on the defense, but the way that Brad Holmes made it sound like they're going to use him more on offense, more as like a wide receiver or as a running back because they want to see what they have there. So I'm going to be, again, fair to Aaron Glenn. He got 3 picks this draft. He got the 2 cornerbacks and he got Wingo, the defensive interior men. So think about it, folks. 16 out of 29. Again, you're talking about 55 to 56% of Brad Holmes' draft picks have gone to the defense. But then, think about this again. I keep putting it out there. Brad Holmes had 2 third-round or higher draft picks in this draft. Then when you couple that with all the other draft picks that he had that were third-round or higher over the last 3 drafts, that now means that Brad Holmes had 16 of those types of picks, so third-round or higher. I just put that out there. Think about this. Brad Holmes has had 29 overall draft picks. 16 is greater than 29. So more than half of Brad Holmes' draft picks have been in the 3rd round or higher. Of those 16 draft picks that Brad Holmes has had that are 3rd round or higher, 11 of them have gone to the defense. So again, you want to know what that equates to? 68.75%, or rounded up, 69%. Why am I going over these numbers yet again? Why am I talking about all of the investment that Brad Holmes has put into this defense? Because I'm going to put this out there as plainly, as bluntly, and as, straight to the point as I can. The excuses are done for Aaron Glenn. The time for saying he doesn't have the talent, he doesn't have the resources, he doesn't have everything that he needs to make this defense work is done. I don't know how many times I heard that over the last few years. Oh, Brad Holmes doesn't have the talent. Brad Holmes doesn't have this. Brad Holmes doesn't have... not Brad Holmes, man. Aaron Glenn doesn't have this. Aaron Glenn doesn't have that. Brad Holmes hasn't gotten him this. Brad Holmes hasn't gotten him that. That's where I was getting messed up there. Well, here's the point now. Brad Holmes has gotten Aaron Glenn everything that he needs. He's given him safeties. He's given him cornerbacks. He's given him edge rushers. He's given him defensive interior linemen. He's given him linebackers. He's given him damn near everything. He's given him a whole damn defense. There's no more excuses. You can't say that Brad Holmes has not given Aaron Glenn the resources that are necessary, whether it's through free agency or whether it's through the draft. At this point, the excuses, the reasons that you can say that Aaron Glenn can't get this defense to work are done. That's why I'm having this conversation, because it's like, okay, Brad Holmes, you just put 2 more top-end quality draft picks into Aaron Glenn's defense. You put him in the cornerback room, an area that we knew was going to be a weakness, that has been a weakness. So once again, Brad Holmes said, okay, this has been a problem. I'm going to put more resources into this defense to try and get it to work. Now I know some fan or some Aaron Glenn defender is going to say, well, David, Brad Holmes still didn't go out and get an edge rusher. Well, here's the thing, folks. I'm just going to say this right now. Aiden Hutchinson is still better than just about almost any edge rusher in the NFL right now. There's about a handful of guys that I think are better than Aiden Hutchinson at this point. I'm just going to simply say this. If Betts is as good as he's been advertised from the CFL, and if Aaron Glenn is supposedly as good of a coach as he's supposed to have been, then there should be no reason why Betts, Houston, Davenport, whatever the case might be, should be able to step up and at least be an average to above average guy opposite of the brilliance and elite pass rushing ability that Hutchinson has. The reason why I'm saying this is because what we heard out of Brad Holmes, what we heard out of Aaron Glenn was that, hey, bringing in Marcus Davenport because he's familiar with Glenn, he's familiar with Campbell, because of their time with the Saints, that was going to help. That was going to be a good piece for them. The fact that James Houston has had the success that he had early on, some people are still thinking that maybe he might be able to work out. And again, there are others that are saying, if, for whatever reason, Betts can translate the success that he had in the CFL to the NFL, that's going to add that too. My whole point is this. When you've invested this much talent, this much resources into one person's defensive scheme, because think about it, truly think about it, 16 players for freaking Aaron Glenn have gone since Brad Holmes has been the GM in the draft. There's only 11 people on the defense at one time. Think about that. Brad Holmes has given Aaron Glenn a whole defense through the last 4 years in the draft. That's why I'm simply saying, at this point, there's no more excuses for Aaron Glenn. It's like, okay, the defense got marginally better overall last year. So now, for the love of God, Aaron Glenn, please take all the resources that Brad Holmes has given you and give us that defense that we need to win a Super Bowl. Because I'm going to say this with all sincerity. If we want to be truly honest with ourselves, it wasn't the offense that lost us a chance to go to the Super Bowl against the 49ers. It was the defense. Sure, the offense had its moments, the drops primarily by Josh Reynolds, the fumble by Jahmyr Gibbs. Those definitely stung. But when you have a 3-score lead at halftime, that falls on the defense to being able to make those stops to make sure that if the offense does screw up, that's not going to hurt us as bad as it did. And at that point, Aaron Glenn's defense, even though it had a severe lead, it had a severe cushion, still could not get it done when it mattered the most. Now, yes, the offense definitely needed to find a way to get out of its own muck at the end of the game. But that's why I'm saying when you give the defense that much of a cushion, the defense should be able to continue to keep you in a safe position. The defense couldn't do that. Now, I know some people are going to say, David, you're still just being a hater on Aaron Glenn. You're not being fair. You're just looking for a way to get rid of him. Let me just put this out there bluntly as I can, folks. I'm not the only person that holds Aaron Glenn to a high standard. There are a lot of other fans that do the exact same thing, some of them even more vocal than what I do to Aaron Glenn, as far as, hey, we have been giving you all this and we've not gotten a damn thing in return virtually. And then there are others that will even say that Aaron Glenn should have been fired 2-3+ years ago. I'm still willing to give him a chance up to this point because of the fact that Dan Campbell is willing to give him a chance. But I'm going to say this. The one person that probably holds Aaron Glenn to a higher standard than anybody else is Aaron Glenn himself. I guarantee you this. If you asked Aaron Glenn if he's happy, if he's satisfied with the defense's, performances over the last couple of years, he would tell you he's not. You want to know how I know that? Because he has said that. The last 3 years, he has said it constantly, that even though he sees quote-unquote progress, he's not satisfied. He is not happy with how his defenses has been performing. So if he's not happy, what makes you think I should be happy? My whole point is this, to sum this whole thing up. Brad Holmes has given Aaron Glenn the talent he needs. He's given him more than enough talent to get this defense to do what it needs to do. Over the last 3 drafts, the free agency acquisitions, Brad Holmes has done his job. Aaron Glenn now needs to do his. It's put up or shut up time for Aaron Glenn. You want to be the best defensive coordinator? You need to take the talent that Brad Holmes has invested heavily into your defense, and you need to make it damn well work. The time for you to say, or your fans to say, or your defenders to say that you don't have the talent anymore, it's done and over with. You have been given more talent than virtually any other coach could possibly get in the rest of the NFL, and you still haven't provided much to really say that you have made it worth the investment. You need to do your job. You need to make this defense at least somewhat close to the offense that Ben Johnson and Jared Goff have made it into. Otherwise, we are going to struggle when it comes time to get to the Super Bowl, when it comes time to get to the conference championship game. That's what your job is, Aaron Glenn. You need to fix this defense, and you need to fix it in your fourth year, or otherwise, I can guarantee you this. My voice will not be the loudest that is calling for your head. I can guarantee you that. But anyway, I just figured I'd end this episode. Again, I'm trying to be pointed, but I'm trying to be fair. I understand that Aaron Glenn has not always had the talent. I understand that the defense has gotten marginally better. But now the excuses are done. He now needs to take what progress he made last year, and he needs to bring it up even further, exponentially much more than what he did. So I'm going to end the episode on that, and I'm going to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you now had a chance to do so, again, please subscribe. It helps out the channel. We're well on our way to 7,000 subscribers. Thank you all for getting me to 6. And in order to keep you guys coming back, I also highly encourage you all to please make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage you all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel grows, the greater the channel spreads. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all have had a blessed day. Hope you all enjoyed the draft. Hope you all have something in your life that makes you happy, that makes you smile. And with that being said, I also hope you enjoyed the content. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.